So I absolutely love all the elements that come into your work on paper. So do you want to like enumerate some of these amazing things that all come into your works?
Well, it's interesting. This one has some history to it because that bottom part is from an old dry point and carborundum etching that I had done.
This piece.
Yeah, and I mimicked it up top with some oil stick. So those are two materials. The bottom would be ink on paper that was recycled, and the top was some new drawing that was made to go with it. And then on the right is that decorative kind of paper, but I don't like the paper to be too important. And this particular paper, I think I purchased at Flax Art Supplies. And it was really expensive, but I bought it anyway. It's like wallpaper. It's like embossed.
Yeah, looks like wallpaper, but it's not.
No, it's not.
It's just
It's
decorative paper.
paper. And then the drawing itself, I used probably a piece of BFK, regular printmaking paper, and probably I did a colored ground on it with the brown, which was probably walnut ink, which is a brown ink that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it was a mixture of pastel, and I think that was it. Pastel, a little pink, because the black part of the breast, the bikini or whatever, is ink, black ink. Looks like black ink to me. So my rule of thumb is whatever sticks I use, whatever manages to adhere.
Uh-huh.
And even when things don't adhere, sometimes they'll dry. Like you can't go over very well acrylic on top of gouache. It'll puddle, or vice versa. Yeah, either way.
You can't go over acrylic with anything because it has a slick plastic surface that doesn't absorb any other material. Yeah. So there are about a half dozen questions that come up with all the things that have been mentioned. So when you're using inks and you're using colored inks, are you using one particular brand of ink, or are you using
with my etching inks, I've mostly been using Charbonnel, and I think mostly Charbonnel. I used to use Daniel Smith. He was a very big supplier of graphic art stuff, and then he stopped doing it. He switched just to selling paint and other things. But those were in cans, and I find that the tubes are more expensive, but there's a lot less waste. And I even play with some water-based inks. The Charbonnel makes a really good water base. I haven't enjoyed things like the Akua. Those they're not dense enough for the way I like to work. But etching inks, the Charbonnel is pretty much stated what I use. And then the oil sticks are probably the what's the brand, FW or something?
R&F?
R&F.
R&F. So
R&F.
those are their pigment sticks.
Yeah, they're very
R&F.
much, they're beautiful pigment.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of waste in them because they have a skin and you're always cutting it. And you cut too much and you use too much, and they're a fortune. And I think like that red. Oh, the other thing I use quite a bit of, I'm not sure if I use it on this one, but I might have, is I use these little bottles of acrylic ink. They're FW brand. I can show you. I'll show you. I'll bring one over.
And then there's glitter on here as well.
There's glitter.
There's glitter.
A whole collection of glitters that different colors of them. Is using them for a while.
So the next question that I had was, what adhesives are you using?
Probably used archival white glue on that because I wouldn't have used Yes Paste. It would be too thick. But on the other parts of it, I probably use Yes Paste because it doesn't have water in it, or isn't watery, and it will work on heavier sheets of paper. you know, the archival white glue is like a white Elmer's, and it tends to be thin, and it's really gorgeous to use it, like if you put in a piece of, well, this one looks like, is it printmaking paper or rice paper?
This one?
Yeah.
This looks like it's a Japanese paper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
it's sandy.
It might be both. It might be a Japanese paper that I glued down to the original etching on top of the printmaking paper and ran it through the press. And then, then it really adheres beautifully.
And so just for the record, this also has staples.
Oh yeah.
And a straight pin, I see.
Yeah.
So
it is, yeah. So yeah, whatever works. I was using staples a lot for a while because I was doing these sort of puppet-like figures. I didn't have any of those that weren't rolled up in storage, otherwise I would have shown you one. And yeah, like this one here, this was an example of adhering Japanese paper to the printmaking paper. And there's a lot of collage in this piece too. This is some wallpaper, not wallpaper, I don't know what it is.
Packing paper that they use.
Well,
corrugated
It's
paper?
it's not corrugated exactly. It's
So do you have multiple sources for your papers, or do you have a primary place you a go-to place?
well, I think, you know, I was going to Artisan Craftsman, but they closed.
Yeah.
And Blick doesn't have a very good supply of papers, and plus they're very pricey. But I don't know. I think that when I was down in LA, there's a place called Hiromi Papers, which is really gorgeous Japanese papers. They have everything under the sun. Yeah, gorgeous stuff. Flax is a good art store too. You know, it's a very full service kind of art store.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna come right over here because this is an amazing piece.
Oh, these were
with
incredible. I started doing
elements.
doing these during the COVID. I was going to a store that's down the street called the Depot for Creative Reuse, and they have a really good selection of fabric and trim and all that stuff. So the story of these, several of them, is that I was painting all the while during the COVID, and I felt like it was going to be a chore, that it wasn't very much fun to just go through morning in the studio, dinner, and then we were watching opera, which was really great. We're still watching it, but not every night, because we were streaming during the pandemic. Anyway, so I started doing these, and I realized that I had so much fun. It was like, I did go to the yardage store. This stuff with the little pearls on it, I had to get at the yardage store. But everything else, the little crochet things, and you know, I wanted to make them feel good. You know, I wanted them to be bright. I wanted them to have a sense of play to them, and I also wanted them to feel like they were layered, like there was something going on where one layer was hiding something from the next.
So what are these mounted on? What is your support for these?
These are mounted on, I had that's interesting. I have some stretcher bars that I made. I wanted them all about the same size. I think they're like 18 by 12 by 4. Anyway, so I went to the lumber yard, bought some sticks, some 1x2, and then I had them cut the door skin, which is the thinnest kind of wood you can buy. It's birch, I think birch door skin, and it's smooth. It's really nice. So I have that all cut to size, and then I assembled it, which is a lot less money than going and buying a panel from someone already made. And then I gessoed the canvas black with black gesso, which is fun.
So there's an underlying, so that you've got your support of your panel that you've
Yeah.
created.
Yeah.
Then there's a support of canvas, and then everything is adhered over that.
Yes, and that was with largely Yes paste and some archival glue. I did finally use a hot glue gun for certain things,
Mhm.
but I didn't really use it. So, and then the stuff that I got was just really fun. I mean, like this fabric was practically called itself to use. It's oh, and this one I really integrated painting with it. You know, I tried to have them be. Let's see. Put it there if you want. No, I can't.
That's okay.
Like I did a number. I tried to paint on it as well as I could. I wanted the feeling of it being handmade and not just fabric that someone else had made.
So what kind of paint are you using on the fabrics here?
I think I used acrylic ink.
Acrylic ink.
Yeah, definitely. And then I used some pastel too, some dry pastel. And,
Do you have fixative over the pastel?
I don't remember if I put fixative on. I probably didn't. And probably if I was going to have them in a show, which would be fun to do, I would go through all that before I sent them off.
So that raises the question of when you're making works on paper that have dry pastel, do you generally use a fixative over them?
Unless I wet it
Uh-huh.
and rub on it a lot. And it's amazing how pastel is very nice with a spray bottle. Spray bottle is like my best friend. You know, I should wear a sweatshirt with a spray bottle. Because if you take like a little bit of pastel and wet it, then it will drip down and it will become part of, see, like this pink.
Yeah.
This pink is thread, and this was sewn, but the extra stuff was pastel. And yeah, so pastel, I mean, is really very giving. So is charcoal.
Yes,
You know, you
charcoal.
really can wet it, and it's very nice. It changes it like a black paint, because what you're getting is the pigmentation.
Yeah. No, the charcoal works well with water. It works well with solvents.
Yeah,
It's,
Yeah. Oh, the
It's
other
very
thing
efficient.
that I've been trying is a little bit of wax. It's like if you coat the printmaking paper, the drawing paper with a very smooth, thin layer of the cold wax, then you can go over it with graphite. It's really beautiful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.